Hey, what's up everybody? So today I wanted to make a video for those of you just getting into photography and looking to buy a camera, or those of you interested in changing camera systems. I'm more of a practical, hands-on type of person, so that's how I will approach this. It's important to choose a system that is right for you. We all have different requirements on our cameras, and it's important to make sure you cover those needs with your purchase. Oftentimes you will spend more than necessary buying a second time after realizing that your first purchase won't do what you need it to do. If that happens a few years down the line after much practice and learning, then it's not as big of a deal, but when that happens weeks or months later, then it can be a real bummer. Sometimes when you're first starting out, it's hard to anticipate those needs and to understand the differences between the many systems available today. It's important when buying a camera that you realize you're buying into a system, even when you're buying a point-and-shoot camera. You need to make sure that the integrated lens can do the type of photography that you intend it to do, or if it's an interchangeable lens system, that the lenses you want are available and in your budget. The demands placed on a camera for use in low light, for instance, are much different than a camera intended for normal daytime photos, and this requirement can affect the type of sensor and lenses that you will need to invest in. A few special uses may include sports, astrophotography, macro or close-up, etc. Once you have established a general idea of the types of photography that you plan to do, now it's important you decide what your final product is going to be. Your needs are much different if you're going to make large billboard-sized prints versus the requirements needed for uploading to Instagram and other web usage. The general rule of thumb that I recommend is that cell phones are good for web and very small prints. Any modern dedicated camera will be more than adequate for web and small to medium-sized prints. If you're looking to do large prints, then you'll probably need a more premium DSLR or mirrorless camera system. We'll come back to this in a few minutes. After you have identified your target uses and final product intentions, you must make a decision on whether or not a camera with a dedicated lens will fulfill your needs, or whether you need the flexibility of an interchangeable lens system. There are many dedicated lens systems available from years past and many still available today. The big differences between them are the speed of the lens, or how much light the lens will let in, and the zoom range of the lens, how wide or narrow the field of view is. The price and quality of the lens is very dependent on these factors, as well as the size and the weight. Generally speaking, in order for a lens to let more light in, the lens will have to be bigger and more expensive. The same issue occurs when you need a lens that can zoom in real far to make small, faraway objects look larger in the image. The more telephoto of a lens that you need, the bigger, heavier, and more expensive the camera will be. If you buy a dedicated lens camera, you must be happy with the lens that it has, whereas if you buy an interchangeable lens system, you will have the option to change the lens out. Just make sure that if you buy an interchangeable lens system, that the lenses you need are available, and make sure to check the prices of said lenses before you buy. If you've decided that you want the smaller size, weight, and simplicity of a dedicated lens camera, then it's a matter of buying one that fits your lens and sensor size requirements. We'll come back to that part later. Don't worry too much about the brand name and just start shooting. Over time, you'll come to know better the focal lengths that you're going to shoot at and learn more about photography. You'll come to see the ways that your camera falls short, and you will be much more informed the next time you need to make a purchase. Now, let's move on to interchangeable lens systems. In the beginning, most lenses were prime lenses, or lenses set to a particular field of view. Later, they figured out how to make zoom lenses that could cover multiple focal lengths. These lenses are definitely more versatile, but generally have a slight disadvantage in optical quality, and also generally in the speed of the lens, which limits the light that reaches the sensor and limits the amount of the bokeh effect available. Today, a few manufacturers are producing lenses that are breaking these rules, and some of the newest zoom lenses have good quality throughout the zoom range and have the ability to use wide apertures throughout as well. Generally, one decent zoom lens may replace 2 and even 3 prime lenses, making them an ideal choice for people needing to travel light or people who need to shoot quickly and need the flexibility more than they need the low light capabilities or the bokeh effect. Today, you don't have to choose between one or the other, but you need to make sure that you choose a camera system with the type lenses that you want and that the full system will fit into your budget. If you don't know, buy a less expensive camera and use it for a while you learn more, and when you need to upgrade, you will be that much more informed. My first digital camera may not be adequate for me now, all these years later, but it was definitely fantastic for me at that time. Most brands have decent lens selections available. Just take a look at the prices of the lenses and the camera combined, and not just the entry price of the camera. You can generally get good quality lenses from any manufacturer, with the main comparisons being the size and the prices of the lenses. The last main difference between interchangeable lens camera systems that you will find will be that some systems use a set of mirrors to show you an analog screen through your viewfinder, and others will use an electronic screen instead. The DSLR that has been used more traditionally uses the analog screen, and the mirrorless camera uses the electronic viewfinder, or EVF. The EVF works just like the screen on the back of a traditional digital camera, but lets you put your eye up to it for focusing or composing images, making it more reliable in different lighting conditions than the rear screen. Mirrorless cameras are the newer technology, and they can be, but are not necessarily always going to be, smaller than a DSLR. I've done a more in-depth video on choosing between the two types that you can see here. Anyone buying a camera needs to make a few decisions and needs to learn a few concepts. As usual, buying new provides you with a warranty and some peace of mind on the general condition of the camera. That said, there have been a few recalls on products over the years, but generally the company will pay to fix the problem. It's also important for you to understand gray market gear. This is gear made by the same manufacturer but intended for a market other than the one that you're buying in. You can find gray market gear online on websites like Amazon, and you can save some money on it, but it will not come with the same manufacturer warranty and may not be eligible for recall repairs or other services offered through the manufacturer. You can also buy gear secondhand and save some serious money that way, but make sure that you know how to properly inspect it for working condition. You can also buy used gear from a reputable dealer, knowing that they have inspected the gear for you and that there is a basic guarantee of the item being in the condition listed. You may want to buy something that will not depreciate much over the next year or two, in case you decide down the road that you made a mistake buying something that you now wish to sell. Buying used also gives you the option to buy something no longer being sold as new, and this can give you a better bang for your buck. For example, I recently bought a high-end camera from 2012 for approximately 1/5 of its original purchase price. This camera is still quite competitive with most cameras on the market today, however it does fall short in some areas. However, the areas where the improvements have been made are generally unimportant to me, or worth the trade-off considering the large discount over the updated replacement for the camera. This allows me to save the money to invest in lenses, which will generally improve your photography more than a nicer camera will. I would encourage many of you to consider the same approach, at least until you know enough about gear to make those decisions on your own. Most dedicated cameras being sold over the last 5 years are more than adequate for almost any use, but the big differences are often in the handling of the camera itself. For example, how many camera functions you're able to control, how the buttons and controls are implemented on the camera itself, and how the menu systems are set up. Oftentimes, the features or quality of a professional camera are only slightly better than the entry-level cameras, but the prices are much, much higher. It's more about how fast or easy you can operate the camera than anything else. One feature that some people argue is not very important is whether a camera has 2 card slots instead of just one. I suggest that everyone needs 2 card slots. Most shots are once in a lifetime. Especially those of you taking photos of your family and friends, I would argue that it's actually more important for you. But anyone using a camera on expensive photo trips, vacations, or any kind of professional assignment, it's absolutely a necessity for you as well. I go into a bit more depth in this video here if you would like a little more information. The last main factor that I'm going to go into is something that I alluded to a bit earlier. One of the main differences you'll see when choosing a camera system is the sensor size. This is a very important factor if you plan on selling stock photography, delivering files to clients, making medium to large size prints, and more. As I mentioned before, the science of printing is a little more nuanced, as what is an acceptable resolution to one person may be unacceptable to someone else. Also, there's a little more room for error when you factor in the viewing distance of a print. An image can be pixelated when viewing more closely, but look decent when you step back farther away from it. Also, the texture of the print can make a difference as well. What looks good on a canvas or other textured paper may look bad when printing a smooth surface print. Also, you must take into account that no 2 sensors can be compared solely using something like a megapixel count or sensor size. Each can perform differently at different ISO ranges, etc. There are 3 main sensor sizes that I will go into here, and they are called micro four thirds, APS-C or crop sensor, and full frame. There are a few other complications when comparing these due to changes in focal length and apparent depth of field, but an oversimplification would be that all things being equal, the larger sensor, the better quality you will get. Meaning that if you take a particular sensor from the smallest of the 3 sizes, micro four thirds, and you scale that same sensor up to a larger size, you will get a better performance. Of course, in the real world, this is not exactly how it works, and there are different levels of performance between different sensors. I, for example, have stayed in the Nikon family of digital cameras and have owned 6, 14, and 20 megapixel APS-C sensors, as well as a 36 megapixel full-frame sensor. The earlier cameras had worse ISO performance, but otherwise had a very similar performance. The resolution got better each time I upgraded, and it basically makes a difference on how big of a file I have from each, and that directly correlates to the sizes I'm able to make a good print from. Each time a client requests a particular print, the first thing I do is think back to remember which camera I took the photo with to help me figure out the sizes I would be able to offer and still keep my personal quality control standards met. Today, the internet is a fantastic resource for anyone starting into photography. What took me 5 years to learn on my own can be learned in a couple of weeks. One suggestion I would give is to study photos you like on any platform that publishes the metadata for a shot along with the photo. When you find a photo you like, you can take a look at the camera and lens used, the settings used to make the shot, as well as some location data. You can make sure to buy gear that can do what you need it to do, as well as studying lighting and composition to help you make better decisions in the field. After you have done enough studying and have some gear to start with and read the manuals for your equipment, it's time to start shooting. Look at the same metadata on your images that work and also on the ones that didn't. You will begin to understand what went right and what went wrong. Learn to identify problems in focusing, exposure, depth of field, shutter time, camera shake, etc. I also suggest you learn the manual controls so you can either do it yourself in some situations, or at least so you can develop an understanding of the camera's logic when you set it up to make some decisions on its own. Then you can know the camera's limitations and how to manipulate it to give you the best possible results in a given situation. It's important that you know that a camera does not see the world the same way you do, and to begin to know how to exploit its strengths and overcome its weaknesses. This goes for everyone, even if you plan to always set your camera to automatic mode if it has it. I have a beginner video to camera exposure that can be a good starting point to learning the basics that you can see here. Anyway, I hope this video helps you and that you can feel more confident in choosing a system that works for you. Feel free to reach out if you're still left with a question that I didn't answer here, and have a good one. Take care.